Last night, I was locked in an epic battle with my 18-month-old. It was time to brush her teeth, but she decided that she was going to do it all by herself and she didn't need my help. Now, while I love the independence, the problem with that is that it really meant she was just walking around sucking on a toothbrush. And every time I tried to help her, she would close her mouth tight and keep it shut, grunting at me through gritted teeth. I tried my go-to trick that usually works, which is asking her to show me her big teeth. But this time she wasn't having any of it. So I flipped the script and tried a completely different approach. This was just one simple phrase and thankfully it worked straight away. We'll chalk that up as a win for Mum. As soon as I said it, she stopped protesting, opened her mouth wide and let me brush her teeth. The reason I'm telling you this is because this strategy doesn't just work for brushing teeth. It's a strategy you can use in any situation where your little one doesn't want to cooperate. And it's based on something called the Premack principle. It's a fancy way of saying that you can motivate your toddler to do something they don't like brushing their teeth, getting dressed, or going to bed, by promising to do something fun immediately afterwards, like playing a game they love with mum or dad, reading a book, or playing with their favorite toy. And the way you apply this principle is by using first-then statements. Here's how it works. First, you start with the task you want your child to do even if they don't like it. Then you follow it with the fun or rewarding activity they get to do after doing that first activity. So it sounds like this. First, wash your hands, then it's dinner time. First, get dressed, then we'll read a book. Or for my daughter, it was first, mummy brush your teeth, then we'll find Ducky, which last night was the toy she was carrying around everywhere. Now, the reason first-then statements work so well is because instead of just demanding that your toddler does something that they don't want to do, you're offering a little bit of extra motivation. Plus, you're setting very clear expectations for your toddler, letting them know exactly what they need to do first and what reward comes after. This predictability gives them a sense of control over their actions, making them feel more secure, and as a result, they're likely to be a little bit less resistant. Furthermore, using a consistent first-then script also helps you stay calm even in tough moments. It provides a simple way for you to communicate what you expect, which is really helpful when you're feeling a little bit frustrated. I also want to quickly mention that this isn't something you need to use with your toddler all the time. There will be lots of times when they are intrinsically motivated and happy to do what you're asking, like with my toddler, who is usually happy to let me brush her teeth. But for those times when they are struggling and you need to provide a little external motivation, first-then statements work really well. Now, while first-then statements are a great way to get your toddler to do things, they might not always work because toddlers can be unpredictable. What works one day might not work the next. That's why it's so important to have a variety of strategies in your parenting toolbox to turn to when you're struggling to get your toddler to cooperate. So now let's look at 3 more strategies that are really easy to use and that work exceptionally well because they tap into your toddler's natural curiosity, desires, and need for independence. This next one taps into your toddler's desire to be just like you. You'll probably notice that they're constantly watching and copying your every move. For example, when you put your shoes and socks on, your toddler will likely grab their socks and shoes to put on too. When you clap your hands, your toddler might clap their hands as well. And in our house, when I wipe the floor after my toddler has eaten, she's right there wiping the floor too. The reason they copy your every move is because that's how toddlers learn. They're observational learners. They watch, they learn, and then they try to do it themselves. This way of learning is why modeling, which is where you demonstrate a task or activity step by step, is such a powerful strategy for getting your little one to do something they might not want to do. When they can see each step of a task being done, it breaks down the process into more manageable parts, making it clearer and less overwhelming for them. And as a result, they're more likely to copy what they've seen. For example, to encourage our youngest to brush her teeth, we model the behaviour every single night. And it looks like this. Every night after dinner, I say it's time to brush your teeth. Our youngest then watches her brother and sister walk into the bathroom and she naturally follows. She then sees her sister pick up her toothbrush and immediately she wants her own toothbrush. While she's sucking on her toothbrush, she watches her sister brush her teeth and then her brother. Then it's her turn. So she does exactly what she just saw her sister and brother do. She climbs the step stool with my help, of course. Then she opens her mouth wide and we take turns brushing her teeth. She then spits and I wash her face, and then she wipes her face clean. And that's it. Now, in that example, my children modeled how to brush their teeth for our youngest, but it would have worked just as well if I had been the one modeling the steps. So if you don't have any siblings in the house, don't worry, modeling will still work. You also don't have to model the whole task. If they're struggling with a particular step in an activity, you can just model that specific part. For instance, if they won't open their mouth when it's time to brush their teeth, instead of saying open wide, you could model it while making it fun. So you would open your mouth wide while saying ah in a playful way. Then you'd wait for your little one to copy you. And then when they do copy you, you would praise them by saying something like, wow, look at your teeth, they're so big. Similarly, if you want them to eat their food, you can model the behavior. So you would pick up a piece of food, place it in your mouth, chew with your mouth wide open, and wait for your little one to copy you. Now, before I move on to the next strategy, I want to quickly mention that something you might find yourself saying when your toddler is doing something you don't want, like throwing the food you were modeling for them to eat onto the floor, is stop it or don't do that. While these phrases might work in the moment, they don't always deliver the intended message. In fact, they can sometimes send a completely different message. And these aren't the only phrases that can be problematic. In fact, there are 8 common phrases that we often use as parents which don't send the message we think. So if you're interested in finding out what these 8 phrases are, what message they may be really sending, and what you can say instead, click the link in the description to get your free copy of 8 parenting phrases to rethink and what to say instead. This next strategy works wonders because it taps into your toddler's desire for independence. As you're probably well aware, toddlers love doing things on their own and making their own decisions. Often they resist doing something, even if you know they'd enjoy it, simply because they feel like they have no say. A simple way to meet their need for independence and encourage them to do something they're not so keen on is by offering choices. When you give them choices, it helps them feel like they have a bit of control over what's happening and makes them feel important. Plus, the fact that they get to choose often means that they're more interested and engaged in the activity. And this can make them more willing to do something they initially didn't want to do. For example, picking out their clothes makes getting dressed more fun and less of a battle. Of course, there are limits to this. You can't give your toddler endless choices or present options that are not feasible. In fact, for this strategy to work, you need to keep 3 things in mind. First, when offering choices, you want to avoid giving too many options, as this can be overwhelming and confusing, making it harder for them to actually make a decision in the first place. So instead, try to limit your choices to 2. For example, you might say, do you want to wear the red shirt or the blue shirt? This keeps things simple and manageable for your toddler. Second, make sure you're offering choices that matter to your child and they're also acceptable to you. You don't want to offer something that you're not willing to go with. This ensures that you will both be happy with the outcome and increase the chances that your toddler will cooperate. For instance, if it's snack time, instead of asking what do you want to eat, you might say, do you want apple slices or a banana? By presenting it this way, your child feels like they have a say in what they eat, giving them a sense of independence and control. And at the same time, you know that they're choosing a healthy snack that you're happy with. Lastly, once they've made their choice, always follow through by giving them what they choose. This step is crucial because it builds trust between you and your child. By honoring their decisions, you show them that they can rely on you to keep your word. When they see that their choices are respected, they feel more secure and understood. This positive reinforcement encourages them to keep making decisions and engaging in good behavior. It also helps them understand the consequences of their choices, teaching them valuable decision-making skills. Now, of course, there are other reasons why your toddler may resist doing something you ask, and one that is really common is timing. They're often in the middle of playing a game, exploring, or doing something they love when we want or need them to move on. We're asking them to suddenly stop what they're doing when they're midway through an activity that is fun or important to them, without allowing them to finish. That naturally leads to feelings of frustration or irritation. You can imagine what that's like. If you're in the middle of something and someone suddenly says, "Stop that right now, it's time to go," you're going to feel a little frustrated. This lack of closure and the emotions they experience as a result can make it hard for them to transition from one activity to the next. So to avoid this, it's important to tell them in advance that it's going to be time to move on soon. Giving them a little bit of extra time to finish up rather than ending the activity suddenly means your toddler is likely to feel more secure and less resistant to changing the activities. Now, although this sounds simple, the most effective way to wrap up an activity is by taking advantage of natural endings. And if there aren't any natural endings to an activity, knowing how to create artificial endings, which is why I created this video. In it, I show you step by step how to create natural and artificial endings for all activities. These strategies are really easy to implement at home, and best of all, once you know how to do this, it will make it easier for your toddler to start and complete tasks, reducing everyone's frustration levels and turn challenging transitions into smooth and manageable parts of your day.